So first, hello everyone. My name is Morgan Hughes, and I am the event and project manager for South Dakota Specialty Producers Association. Thank you all for joining us to discuss regional aggregation and learn more about current opportunities and resources. First, I want to know our ability to host this series of regional meetings is supported through a specialty crop block grant that SDSPA received through the South Dakota Department of Ag and Natural Resources. Today, we have three different presenters here to discuss different opportunities with time for questions. And after the presentations, I have a series of resources, opportunities, and different projects in development that I'll go over. And at the end of the meetings, there will be a chance to discuss the current challenges, ideas, and interests regarding regional aggregation. So to start, I'm going to pass it over to Lisa to talk about the Dakota Fresh Food Hub.
All right, good evening, everyone, and thanks for having me, Morgan. I am, as Morgan said, Lisa Smith. I own and operate a produce farm over in the southwestern corner of Minnesota, about 13 miles from the South Dakota border, about 50 miles from Sioux Falls. And I have been a member of Dakota Fresh Food Hub since we formed in 2015 and then started doing business in 2016. And so Morgan asked me just to give a little bit of information about how the hub works, what the producer opportunities might be for that. And I'll also, with that, touch on the LFPA grant, which we are a subrecipient of through the South Dakota Department of Ag and Natural Resources. Timothy is here and he is the grant, is it administrator? Would that be the correct title, Timothy?
That works.
Okay, and so he can jump into if there's some extra information that we should provide about that. But that's an extra producer opportunity, both for producers that are part of Dakota Fresh, but also for other South Dakota producers. So we'll visit about that a little bit too. Basically, our mission statement is about trying to increase the availability of and accessibility to local foods and to support producers and customers and communities in the process of that. So we've tried to kind of keep that in the forefront of what we do, and realizing, I think, that you really need to consider all of those things and focus on, the big picture of, again, that accessibility and availability of local foods to benefit our producers, our customers, and community-based food systems. And so we formed with the help of a SDSU extension and some grant money originally. And again, that was 2016. So we're 2024 still afloat here in our 8th year. And we currently have 13 producers. Yeah, and thank you. And can you go down that second slide, Morgan? Not all of these slides apply, but I found, ironically, we're putting a new website together and putting it on a new platform. And it just so happens that today's the day that domain is being transferred. And I got into my email this morning and said this could take up to 24 hours. So I was going to use the website, go to the website and show you some of these things, but I had to dig up some old documents to find them instead. So again, this is our mission statement: and produce and provide high quality, safe, healthy food to our region while fostering strong relationships among producers, customers, and our communities. So I wasn't too far off. And so producers interested in joining Dakota Fresh, if we talk about just kind of the how-tos, can contact myself or our manager and just request information. Usually producers have a lot of questions about how it works, and we try to walk them through that. And if they get to a point where they make the decision to join, They've looked at our operating agreement, reviewed that, had a chance to ask questions about that. Then we have them send us a short bio about themselves and their production practices. There are some things in our operating agreement about production practices being basically as chemical free as possible and that sort of thing. And so they sign that operating agreement. But first they send us the bio, and then our members have to unanimously vote to accept them as members of the Food Hub. Then they send the operating agreement back along with their initial fees. And usually that's a question, what are the fees? So this is a member-owned hub. And so when you join Dakota Fresh, you pay a membership fee of $1,000 to join, and that gives you a share in the business. And so if we had 10 producers, you'd own 10% of the company. If we have 20, you own 5%. Like I said, we have 13 right now. That money, that $1,000 does not have to be paid all at once. If the new member chooses, they can spread that out over the year in quarterly payments and pay $250 quarterly. Also with the first payment, though, they would pay the annual fee that we have, which is $200. And that we think of as, kind of like a selling fee, sort of like if you were to go to a farmer's market and sell, you'd pay some sort of a fee to participate. So that's an annual fee. And then there is a margin of your sales as well that comes back to the hub. And sometimes that seems like a lot right away. But when you consider the fact that the hub does your marketing, your delivering, your invoicing, your accounting, collecting all the money and paying you, that margin is sort of what we think of as what pays for our operating costs. So we have a manager that we pay, we have a cooler that we pay rent on, a delivery vehicle, delivery driver. If we do any sort of marketing or, just basic upkeep, maintenance of things, QuickBooks, our accountant, all of those things are paid for basically out of those parts of our sales that come back to the hub. So with things like meat and eggs and milk, the margin for that is a 12%. So basically what that means is with those sales, 88% of that comes back to the producer and 12% comes to the hub. And then with produce, it's a little bit different because of the differences in production costs. So with produce, 75% of the sale goes back to the producer, 25% comes back to the hub. And that margin is probably at least partially passed on to the customer in some form. I don't think when we look at our prices that producers are always really giving back 25% because we have, prices that assume some of that. So and again, I think the customer is assuming some of that percentage, but that 25% comes back again for our operating costs. With our retail customers, we serve both wholesale and retail customers, and with the retail customers, it's actually 30% that comes back to the hub, but the retail prices are higher. And so sometimes the producer actually ends up getting more for that item because the price of the item is higher. So that's the system as far as cost and fees and that sort of thing that people are usually interested in knowing up front. The ordering system that we have that our customers order on is online. So it really is sort of like an online farmer's market for our retail customers. For our wholesale customers, they can get online and order. Some of them don't. They contact the manager and have her put their orders in, which works too. But everything is online and in a system that makes it fairly easy for sending pick lists for the producers and invoicing and all of those kinds of things. So our ordering period is from Monday at 8 a.m. through Tuesday at 6 p.m. And then producers have until 9 to get their items to the cooler, which is in Sioux Falls that we rent. And we deliver all of those items then on Thursday. So, or they need to have their produce there by 9 on Thursday because we deliver on Thursdays. So we have a delivery driver that takes everything around to the wholesale customers, and we have drop sites for the retail customers in Sioux Falls and in Brookings. And with that, the customers that we serve that are wholesale include restaurants and grocery stores like the Sioux Falls Food Co-op and Pomegranate Market, some of the Hy-Vees and so on. The institutions like Avera we've worked with, again, lots of restaurants and sometimes small businesses that even sell like gift items. We have little honey bears and some soaps and things that one of our producers makes. So those are our wholesale customers. And again, retail customers can be either in the Sioux Falls area or in Brookings. So it's kind of how it works. I'm going to see one more time if I can share my screen, if you want to, and see if maybe this next thing will come up for me. There, that one worked. Okay. So we like to think of the producer benefits as the following things. You know, again, the sales, the marketing, delivering, invoicing are all managed by Dakota Fresh, so that producers can focus on what most of us like to do best, and that's produce food. Again, we have the online marketplace where producers list their items, and then the wholesale and retail customers can buy from there. Harvest on an as-needed basis. You know what you have to deliver on Tuesday when you get your pick list Tuesday evening, so you know how much you've sold. So it's different than going to a farmer's market where you take a wagon load of stuff and come home with half of it. And hopefully that doesn't happen all the time, but I know it has happened to me. So that was one thing that I found to be a true benefit of the hub, is you know what you have sold. Product promotion. We have a marketing team that develops marketing materials, posts on social media, and other things to make sure that we're marketing our products. Weekly delivery, again, we do that. The delivery driver does that. Prompt monthly payments, so producers are paid on the 15th of the month every month for the sales that they had the month before. So for example, all of your March sales would be paid on April 15th. And so it's nice. It's one check. You don't have to collect money from any of your customers that you're selling to through Dakota Fresh. And then community. And this I found to be a real benefit. Living here in the southwestern corner of Minnesota, I've done this for about 30 years. And I know when I first started, it was really, really hard to find a community of people that followed or believed in some of the same production practices as I. You know, there's a lot of really big corn and bean farmers around here, and I didn't really fit into that. And it was just really hard to find a group of people that I felt like I could connect to. And so that was something that I was really excited about when I had the opportunity to join Dakota Fresh, because you network with one another, you can share information, you can share ideas. Sometimes we order, for example, I had always ordered my seed potatoes with another producer. Sometimes we buy packaging items together as producers. So, and not only that, we have the same goal and value of promoting healthy, sustainably grown local food to our region, and that whole Dakota Fresh vision and mission. So that on the bottom is our manager Abby's phone number. So that's a contact if producers are interested in learning more. They can certainly contact her at that number. Maybe I'll just put my information in the chat too. You could also feel free to contact me if you have questions that I can answer. I'll just put my phone number in here and send that on. So, Morgan, what other questions? I know that you had mentioned a few things when you asked me to present, and we'll
Yeah,
talk about
so
meeting South Dakota grant as well here in just.
one of the reasons that I kind of invited you to come speak is because for these 2024 meetings, I tried to really tailor the agenda and the speakers to the key topics from the 2023 meetings. And in 2023, some of the producers, specifically in this region, Region 3, Northeast South Dakota, were interested in learning more about the Dakota Fresh model and kind of expanding it. So I was curious. I'm really happy that you touched on kind of how producers can get involved during this journey of creating Dakota Fresh and kind of for your involvement. Is there anything specific that you wish that you had done differently sooner, or certain factors that will certainly change by region? Like, just kind of talking a little bit about, it's obviously not a uniform model. It can't just be copy and pasted other places. So just talking a little bit about that.
Okay, right. I think that's very true that every region might have some differences. You know, being close to the big urban center of Sioux Falls makes it an advantage, I guess, for us to find markets and um, to I guess have a customer base. Even our retail customer base is big because it's such a large area. A couple of things looking back, and we definitely we have definitely had our ups and downs, and you know, we got started, and I think one thing looking back would be we at first were running around and picking up all of our producers' items all over the place. And so we spent a lot of time on the road. We still tried to kind of have aggregation points where we would go out to say pick up these 3 producers things here and these 4 producers things here. And it just became very costly to do that and very time consuming because our producers live within a 100-mile radius of Sioux Falls. So we have people way up in the Brookings area. We have people out west of Sioux Falls. We have people down in the Yankton area. I'm over in Minnesota, the other direction. So we were spending a lot of time driving around picking up things. And I would say if you can, one of the best things we ever did was to find, we found a cooler through the Minnehaha County Conservation District, just sort of by chance. And they have a big cooler that they keep their trees in the springtime. And they were willing to rent us some space in that cooler to use to aggregate. And so that was huge. And if we were doing it over again, I would say try to find something like that first, a central location where everybody can bring their product to on a weekly basis. You know, we do have some producers that keep an inventory. Things like meat, we have a freezer at the coolers so that our meat producers can keep some inventory there if they need to, so they don't have to be running it in every single week. Cheese can be kept for a while in the cooler. So to find that aggregation point where everybody, all of the producers can come to. It might be different if maybe there's only 5 or 6 of you, you know, and you're all within maybe 50 miles of one another. But as spread out as we were, that really became a logistical nightmare is what it became. And so going back, I think we'd do that differently. What other things? You know, we started off, our sales became really, really strong in about, probably 2020. And then COVID hit, and that actually ended up being a positive thing for us because sometimes we had things that places couldn't get elsewhere. And so they relied on Dakota Fresh for the local produce that maybe they weren't getting on the truck or whatever it might have been, eggs, whatever. And so that didn't really slow us down. One of the things I think that happened too with that whole logistical piece is, and that to me has probably been the hardest piece, the whole logistical, making it work that way. But I think we grew at a point really fast. And all of a sudden we had a lot to deliver and a lot to manage, and maybe not um, the manpower to do it as well as we wanted to. We had some instances, unfortunately, where we had a delivery driver that left a bunch of lettuce in a freezer instead of a cooler at a customer place. And we probably had that delivery driver because we were really desperate for somebody to help. And so we had some, definitely bumps in the road that we had to overcome and get through. And we feel like our ship is upright again and we're moving along in a good direction now. And definitely some of the grant opportunities like the Feeding South Dakota grant have been a real plus for us. And so if you'd like me to talk about that now, I sure can, or maybe you've thought
I
about it.
have one more question, and
Yeah,
then maybe you and Timothy can both kind of add a little bit about
sure.
that.
Hmm.
Um, so my other question is, I know that last year a lot of people were kind of curious what your average week looks like in terms of retail versus wholesale orders, about how much are you delivering, and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, last year might not be the best year to talk about because it probably was not one of our best years. I
I'm looking for you to talk about like currently, but just kind of
okay, currently,
based
so
on the fact that people were interested last year.
sure. Oh, okay. Yeah. So currently now, so we're seeing we also have a specialty crop block grant, and we have targeted our retail markets with that grant, and we're already seeing some really nice results from that. So our retail customers are back up. And this isn't impressive, but we probably have between 10 and 15 orders a week right now, but it's the slow time of the year. So we're hoping, as the season goes, we're going to be offering some farm shares, which are sort of like a CSA box. And we hope to gain some customers that way. Um, and we really hope to see our retail base continue to grow. I think, oh gosh, I'm trying to think at our best point. I mean, we really have always we've always been heavier in the wholesale sales, I would say, than retail quite a bit. Um, maybe something like 75% wholesale, 25% retail, something like that. But again, with this grant, our hope is to really grow this retail customer base. And again, with the goal of just trying to make more local foods more available and accessible to all different populations of people. Um, so I don't know if that answers your question or not. I think, gosh, I mean, like I said, at our busiest time, we had probably 20 to 30 wholesale deliveries a week, and then maybe the 25 or so retail orders.
Great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
And if you want to talk a little bit about the Feeding South Dakota grant and any opportunities with that and how that's been working out for Dakota Fresh, that would be great.
sure. And I'm probably taking more of your time than I should have. But so Timothy again is the grant administrator for this, and we're one of the sub-recipients. And so through that grant, we're able to buy produce from our producers, but also from producers outside of the hub. They have to be a South Dakota producer, and growing South Dakota products, of course. And we have about a year left of this grant now, so it ends in June of 2025. And so we're really interested through this grant in trying to especially serve underserved producers and underserved populations and communities. So we are buying the produce, and then our manager connects with the food pantries or Feeding South Dakota sites that we're working with currently and hoping to expand. And then everything else works pretty much the same way. The manager puts in the orders on our ordering system. Producers bring their produce or product to the aggregation cooler, and it's delivered then on Thursday. We are also trying to work with some producers in specific locations that are interested in just delivering their Feeding South Dakota sales directly to the the Feeding South Dakota site. Timothy, you could add to that, I bet.
Yeah, no, I think Lisa, I think you covered it really well. We're really Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources is really appreciative of Dakota Fresh's willingness to step up and help us use this one-time funding from USDA for really awesome purpose, buying food from our South Dakota producers and then delivering it to those who need it most. And we appreciate Dakota Fresh really stepping out and taking advantage of the opportunity and learning and just doing a great job working with us to make it happen. And it's been a great program. Feeding South Dakota helped us get it going, and they've been instrumental in being able to reach all over the state. And really, it's been just awesome to see people who might not normally have access to some of this local produce that our producers are able to raise and grow and deliver to market through networks like Dakota Fresh and have access to those products through this program. So we're really pleased to be able to work with Dakota Fresh to do that for producers. Like Lisa mentioned, there's a little bit over a year left. The funding from USDA and the agreement that the state has with USDA expires in June of 2025. So we have until that point to expend the rest of the funds on buying food and delivering it. It's been going well, spending that consistently, and Lisa and Dakota Fresh have been doing an outstanding job starting in last September and just really making a great impact right away. So we are excited to see this last year work out. And I think right now, if there's any producer who is interested in participating, as you're having as you're looking at what you're going to plant for this upcoming year and thinking about your markets that you're bringing food to, this is a really good time to reach out to Dakota Fresh and talk with them about working with them under this program specifically. And this will be the last year, the last full growing season that we will have under this program. So that would be a great time to have those conversations.
Yeah, and again, they can contact Abby. I guess I'm still sharing my screen, aren't I? And I wouldn't have to, but Abby is our general manager, and her number is here at the bottom of the screen. And I did put my number in the chat as well.
And just to clarify, you said that you might be looking for producers to sell directly to the recipients. Does that mean that it could be a statewide opportunity rather than just in Brookings or Sioux Falls?
Well, there is the Black Hills Farmers Market is also a subrecipient of the grant. So I think that part of the state is somewhat covered by them. But I visited with Peggy Martin, and she did talk too about, there may be opportunities, whether it's on tribal lands or elsewhere for, again, Dakota Fresh actually purchases the produce from the producer with the funds that we have through the grant, but they could possibly deliver directly to that Feeding South Dakota site because it would make more sense. If they're farther from Sioux Falls than they are from a Feeding South Dakota site, it would sure make more sense for them to deliver their produce directly to, or eggs or meat or whatever it is, honey, to drop those items off at a Feeding South Dakota site rather than come all the way to Sioux Falls for us to deliver it.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. Does anyone have any questions for Lisa before we move on and hear from Jeb? All right, Lisa, if you can, I
Yeah,
don't know if I can
stop
stop
sharing
your
the
screen
screen.
share. And
There we go.
then we'll turn it over to Jeb, who is going to talk about the pilot prescription program that's happening in South Dakota.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Megan or Morgan. Sorry. Thank you, Morgan, for inviting me and having me here to talk tonight. Um, just super excited to share this project as we just started up the pilot for it, and we're going into our first growing season under this new project. Some of you may have already seen the longer version of this talk, which I did a few weeks ago as part of an SDSU extension webinar, but this will be the nice abridged version. And then if you are interested after this talk of hearing more, you can go to our extension.sdstate.edu website. I'm hoping to have a landing page for this project very soon, hopefully within the next week. Another exciting thing since the webinar that I hosted a couple of weeks ago, we finally have a name for the program. So our program is called Dakota Food RX. And so this really is a produce prescription program, and it's very unique as it's the only one in South Dakota that is connecting patients with fresh, locally grown produce, as opposed to connecting them with produce through a grocery model, such as some of the other produce prescriptions. So first, just to all be on the same page here, a produce prescription it's kind of a new term out there. It's part of this larger network called Food is Medicine that people are doing all over the country. But really, produce prescriptions are a link between the food system and the healthcare system. And specifically, it's this type of program that allows for physicians and other healthcare providers to provide access to fresh fruits and vegetables for their own patients who are that meet two criteria. And the first criteria is that they have to be income eligible. So this is particularly for patients who are eligible for SNAP, Medicaid, or other food assistance programs. And then also there is a health component. So they also have to be at risk or currently have a diet-related chronic disease. So you can think of like diabetes. If someone has diabetes, they would be eligible, but also if they have pre-diabetes. Same thing if they have like heart disease, but also if they have high blood pressure, putting them at risk for heart disease. So as you can imagine, this program is really critical for helping a lot of patients who are otherwise probably struggling to afford and have access to healthy foods, including fresh fruits and vegetables, and allowing them not only the access to having a healthier diet, but really helping them prevent the onset of chronic disease and even managing conditions. So how does a produce prescription work? There really are four simple steps of the process that I've kind of outlaid on this slide. So the first part is that the patient goes to the healthcare provider. So again, this can be a physician, this can be a nurse practitioner, a dietitian, all types of healthcare practitioners. The healthcare provider then screens the patient using that eligibility criteria. So A, do they meet the income criteria? Especially based on the Medicaid, which they'll know through the health insurance information. And then do they meet that clinical criteria based on their own clinical judgment as a healthcare practitioner? Once they've decided that they're eligible for the program, then the patient receives some type of prescription. And it's not a prescription in the same way that, you get your medication prescription from the doctor. It really is more of like a voucher or a coupon or some other type of uh, slip like that. And then the patient can then use that voucher that they get from their healthcare provider to go to a participating retailer and then redeem it for fresh fruits and vegetables. So really, there are a lot of different ways that this can look. There are a lot of different healthcare providers, as I've already kind of alluded to. There's also a lot of different food retailers. So we have a few programs already in South Dakota that are funded by some larger USDA grants that are connecting with grocery stores. So Avera Research Institute in Sioux Falls is currently doing a food as medicine study, which is a produce prescription that is connecting patients mostly with Hy-Vee supermarkets. Over in Rapid City, we have another grant that is connected through the Breadroot co-op grocery. But as you can see through this, there are all sorts of, food retailers or food delivery sites that can work, including local food and direct market channels such as farmers markets, CSA, farm stands. And so that's really the avenue that we wanted to take with this project. Um, Again, Dakota Food RX. And so this pilot project is actually the building up and expansion of a project that Jared Lukens Black, who's the man on the left in this photo, started in his operation at Budding Moon Farm over in Spearfish. And so when he started growing and implementing his CSA program, he started from pretty much the beginning, implementing a type of produce prescription where he had some of his other paying customers donate to the program, offset some of that cost, so people who were SNAP or Medicaid eligible and had these chronic disease conditions would be able to get subsidized or low cost shares. So they were paying a $5 copay, if you will, to get a CSA share each week. And so he came to me and said, I really love this program. I really want to see it grow, but I'm on half an acre. I really can't afford to, do more than 30 shares max for a program like this. I'd love to get more farmers involved. So that's what we did. So we applied to the South Dakota Community Foundation for some pilot funding. We got another farm in Spearfish involved. So you see Jeremy here from Cycle Farm. This photo is actually right at Cycle. And so we got this pilot funding to really expand this program and really build up capacity to expand it. And our large goal here is to expand the program statewide and hopefully apply for the big USDA pot of funding, which is called GusNIP, in order to implement a program like this where we are connecting customers throughout the state with local growers in their community and providing those produce prescriptions through those models. So this slide just outlines a little bit of what our pilot project is going to look like. So at this point, we really are at the point of just developing our project brand, logo, promotional materials, and then this growing season is when the actual pilot will start. And so the healthcare provider will be Monument Health, as that's the main healthcare network out there. We've already done the presentation with the physicians and got their buy-in, so they're very excited to be partnering with this project. And then SDSU Extension is going to do a few other activities, such as developing some additional healthy recipes and cooking demonstrations to provide to the patients in the program, especially since a lot of these patients, it might be their first time being part of a CSA and they might not even know really what they signed up for. So especially once they get that first box with some of the unfamiliar produce. We're also going to help with evaluation and then gathering additional partners in grant writing. So again, Lisa was talking about how the Dakota Fresh Food Hub is really, there to do all of the hard work. So, the producers can do what they love to do, which is grow. I feel like I do the same types of services for the farmers I work with. I get to do the grant writing, the research, all that fun stuff. Stuff that I find fun. So growers can grow, which they find fun, and I don't. So yeah. So looking at scaling up Dakota Food RX, so again, we're in our pilot year now in this growing season. What we really want to do for 2025 is to, again, expand this even further and really see how this looks in different centers across the state. So we are looking for additional growers, and currently we are looking for growers who are able to pledge support in either A, reserving CSA shares, or B, reserving a certain amount of redeemable produce throughout the growing season because we're not limiting ourselves to CSA. We know that it's going to look a little bit different in every community. So if a grower in a certain community is mostly doing farmers market, then the produce prescription would then be redeemable for a certain amount of produce each week at the farmers market. So we're going to be pretty flexible with the model as we expand. What we're really looking for is to expand the amount of patients that we can enroll in the program. As we all know, South Dakota is not exactly the most populous state, and so sometimes it is hard to get the sample sizes that USDA would like us to have in order to evaluate the program, be part of the national study that evaluates food as medicine programs. So they want us to get to at least 100 to really apply for the big bucks. And right now in this pilot, we're hoping to support 40 patients. So we have a bit of growth to do. And then, of course, for each grower in these different communities across the state, we'll need to connect them with healthcare providers. So obviously, it can't just be Monument, especially if we're going to go into East River. Um, but luckily, I'm more than happy to facilitate those conversations. So my background is nutrition and dietetics, and so I'm a registered dietitian myself. I know how to talk the healthcare lingo, and so that's again part of the services I provide is really making those connections and making sure that all the needs are met across the board. And like I said, we're really looking for any type of model that local growers are doing that has that end goal of weekly provision of fruits and vegetables to patients. So we really want, once they're referred by a healthcare provider and enrolled in the program, we want them to be able to get weekly um, uh, redemption of fruits and vegetables for at least the majority of the growing season. We currently have a June to September plan for all the patients, and then we're going to expand a little bit into a fall share for a select few. Because as we know, people tend to drop out of CSA shares in the fall. It's just not as popular. So that's kind of the sneak peek. Like I said, we're hoping to get a landing page up for Dakota Food RX very shortly on the SDSU website. In the meantime, if you're interested or have questions, feel free to contact me. This is all of my contact information here. Email is definitely the best method. I actually live in Sioux Falls, so I'm only in the office about half the time. So sometimes if you try to call me on my office phone, I might not pick up. But in the meantime, you can contact me there. Once we have the landing page, there'll actually be a contact form that people can sign up onto a mailing list, and that will actually give you full access to the 90-minute webinar that I hosted a few weeks ago on March 23rd, which goes into a lot of this in more detail, as well as a discussion session with some of the growers who were on the call and had some ideas of how they might be able to implement this on their own operation. So with that, I'll stop sharing here and give some time for any questions that people might have.
Jeb, I just want to say that it totally makes my day to see this kind of thing happening. I'm actually a registered nurse,
Oh,
and
wow.
part of my whole passion for growing healthy food connects back to that healthcare background. I worked in cardiology for a long time and watched a lot of preventable,
Yeah.
disease and chronic illnesses and those sorts of things. And I've always believed that food is medicine. So
Hmm.
this is very exciting to see. I didn't know
Awesome.
about it. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's something that I've been really passionate about scaling up since starting here. I'm in my second year at SDSU, so I've moved here from the East Coast. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. When I was an undergraduate, I took a public health nutrition class, and I remember the professor telling us, we don't grow enough fruits and vegetables for everyone to meet the dietary guidelines. And as a nutritionist, I'm like, what am I doing? It's like, we're telling people to make half your plate fruits and veggies, and we don't even have the capacity to do it. So I just knew that I probably literally since that moment, I knew that like part of my mission as a nutritionist would be to connect with food systems, connect with growers, and really make sure that we're supporting you guys because as you know, it's 1% that feeds the other 99. And we need you if we're going to have a public health mission of preventing chronic disease and improving the lifespan.
It's so crazy to me that we both are now here in South Dakota and from the East Coast. But you talked a little bit about the previous webinar and how there was some discussion from producers about how they would implement it in their operations. Would you share some of that and kind of talk a little bit about how it can look different for everyone?
Absolutely. And you know what? I'm gonna pull out my notes, my little cheat sheet here, just to so I don't misrepresent what anyone said, but we had a really great discussion. Oh yeah, so for example, we had Bear Butte Farms on there. They were talking about their commercial kitchen that they actually have on site. One of the things that I think everyone talks about is diversifying, your sales. Now, unfortunately, when we go up for USDA money, it's going to be a little, bear the pun here, prescriptive with what they're going to fund. So it's just going to be fresh fruits and vegetables. So the option of adding value added and, maybe extending the season, unfortunately, won't be supported by a grant like that. But what I like to think of is that just leaves the door open to pursue other fundings or other ways to, support the sustainability of something like that, because we know that, the need for fruits and vegetables don't stop, at the end of October. They go on into the winter months. Um, what are some of the other things? Also we're talking about just ways to connect with more farmers. We're talking about the Black Hills Farmers Market and that there was a bit of like some social events that were going on in the hills there. We were also talking about how Rick was there from Spa and he was talking about, different educational handouts that could be provided to growers to get them interested. So those of us who don't always have time to attend a webinar because again we're busy growing and doing all the fun work associated with that. And then a lot of other just ideas and looking at, also we were talking about some aggregation. Someone mentioned that, maybe there's a way to do this so multiple farms could come together and so that could share risk. Part of the idea of somebody, reserving so many CSA shares for a patient that may or may not end up getting enrolled in a program can be a little scary, especially if you're still new. And so we were talking about ways to maybe aggregate that and split the risk there. I'm also of the opinion where it's like, I don't want people to lose money by being part of this program. And so, if we don't enroll the participants, and obviously you need the receipt of purchase from the participants so we can reimburse you at SDSU, but if we don't enroll the participants, and we're coming up on the week, I want you to be able to sell that share, or I want you to be able to bring that produce to the farmer's market and have paying customers buy it up. I don't want it to go to waste. So we'll just be really flexible as we continue to grow this model and really see what works, what might need to be tweaked as we move forward.
Thanks for sharing. And for the listeners that are interested, tomorrow, a program at the Region 4 meeting, a program that's active in North Carolina is coming to speak, and they do it in a little bit of a different model, but something that Jeb and I had talked about in a previous conversation was how it may look different in different parts of the states, similar to how we talked a little bit about Dakota Fresh not being a one size fits all or a universal model. The same thing is true for the prescription program.
Absolutely. And just another thing that's come down the line, or at least we're trying to work real hard on. There's another program that USDA funds called the Nutrition Incentive Program. And so if you've ever heard of a double up bucks, that's essentially this program. They've just changed the name over the years. And so SDSU Extension is currently also working on a grant to get some double up bucks back into South Dakota. That's gonna be a little bifold here. We're currently working mostly with the retail partner, Bowie Foods, which is more based in the interior of the state. But then we're also working with some select farmers markets that kind of coincide in our SNAP education areas. So hopefully that'll be just another avenue for, local producers to get more produce out to customers who really need it.
I know that in the Farmers Market Coalition, there has been a little bit of interest in the double up bucks just through conversation about SNAP and other programs. So if any opportunities become available with that, or you need producer feedback, definitely get in touch with me because I think that that group would be interested.
That's really good to hear, and I can pass that along. So we have someone else who's the lead on that project, but I'm also part of that project, so I'd be happy to talk about it.
Minnesota has a program like that at the farmers market that I sell at, where we call it market bucks, but
Yeah.
an EBT customer can purchase $10 and then get a $10 match.
Yes. And I think one of the other things that just we're trying to do is get more farmers markets in South Dakota accepting EBT. I know it can sometimes be a little challenging logistically. And so, we're thinking an extension about how to support market managers in making that transition, because all it's going to do is increase the customer base, and even for the people at the farmers markets who don't sell produce or EBT eligible items, it's also going to increase business for that, because they're going to get their, EBT eligible items, and then they're also going to look at the soaps and they're going to say, oh, this is amazing, I want some of that, so it's good for business all around.
Those are interesting points. I know that in some of the conversations we had, sometimes a bad experience or trouble with the software can really turn people off to using it. And I understand that. But even from the producer perspective, I think it's kind of a draw to farmers markets in terms that you can sell to so many different people in like one location and different payment methods. And so I definitely think it's a great thing to accept, but I also can understand some of the downsides or the flaws. But that's exciting that you're working on some education for that.
Yes, yeah, we're trying to wrap our brains around what technical assistance people still need and all of that. And there's a few groups in Sioux Falls specifically. Someone who lives in Sioux Falls, obviously I go to Falls Park Farmers Market, and I'd love, to see more EBT usage there. So, definitely on the list of things we're trying to tackle in extension.
Okay. Well, um, I'm not going to probably go through my whole agenda just because Kaylin is or Callan, Kaylin is our only attendee. Um, and she has already attended some of the meetings, but if you're listening actively, do you want to unmute yourself and kind of introduce yourself? Okay, maybe not. But I know that she is a Dakota Fresh producer as well, which is kind of fun. But yeah, I appreciate you both joining.
Okay. Can you hear me now, Morgan?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so yeah, and I did listen to Jeb's presentation wholly on March 23rd also. Just didn't get in on all the conversations later and such. And so I don't know, Morgan, do you have anything you want me to comment to or about? I mean, so I listened in on the region one in which I can't remember the name of the business in Rapid City that's gonna, is really working to, be a site for, fresh food type aspect and such. So I think, there is opportunities on the west side, and I'm kind of a different type of person because I spend like 3-4 days on the east side, and then I spend 3-4 days in the Custer area. And so I have, a perspective from both the east side and the west side in regards to fresh fruit, food, being available on both sides of the state.
That's really interesting. And that business is called the Diamond E Collective.
Yeah.
She's actually going to speak at this one as well, but she hasn't hopped on. But you mentioned how you're on both sides of the state, and I think that that's a really interesting thing to consider with a model like that. Basically, Lisa and Jeb, if you aren't familiar with the Diamond E Collective, it's a new business and they're selling different local products, but they'll accept them from anywhere in South Dakota. You just have to get the product to them. And so, Kaylin, the people that are driving from one side of the state to the other, I think that presents a really interesting opportunity because some east side producers could kind of band together and send things with one person, and all be taking advantage of that
So
opportunity.
is Lisa thinking right now, like, okay, we can just collect on Thursday, and when Kinlan delivers from Brookings, she can pick up the West Coast.
Load up your truck, Caitlin.
Yeah. So, and like for me, I grow fresh produce, so I don't really see it as an option. However, if I retire on the west side of the state someday, I'll probably start a microgreen business or, just continue what I'm doing here, there type thing. So, because again, like that's one thing, Jeb, as far as like just getting education out there, as far as like how many, phytonutrients or how many micronutrients are in a lot of the produce. How, are there programs or are there information at SDSU that really needs to get out to the communities?
Yeah, well, we'd focused a lot on we have a lot of nutrition education for SNAP audiences, so we do a lot of that in communities throughout the state. We have some youth programming. One of our curricula that we offer is called Pick It, Try It, Like It, Preserve It. And so we actually have fact sheets on our website about just about any produce item that can be grown in South Dakota. And it has information on, how to grow it, how to prepare it in a meal, why it's a healthy food, how to preserve it for the winter months. So we do have some of that educational offerings, and or I have to say our horticulture and our nutrition folks and extension work very closely to provide some of that education piece to really get people from garden to plate, and thinking more about increasing access to produce. So if you ever want any of those materials or need help finding them, I'm more than happy to point you to the right people or the right resources.